Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the We Crush Winter Summer webinar series. Thank you for so much for taking time out of your summer to come join us. We're super excited for another great topic. And well, I don't know about all of you. I know my home is up in New Hampshire and it was down in the 40s last night. And so the trees are starting to turn a little crispy. The acorns are starting to fall. I feel that chill in the air and I start to think, wow, we are already halfway through August. Winter is going to be here before we know it. And so as we go to get ready for our winter season, one of the things that's important to think about is our health and wellness. Many of us are working 7 days a week through the winter. We're out in the elements. We're dealing with a lot of people. We're dealing with kids with runny noses and protecting our bodies, protecting our health, keeping ourselves sane through all of that is really important. And so I've got some great co-hosts joining me tonight to hopefully talk about some of these things. If things go according to plan, we're going to have you break out into some breakout groups to see if we can have conversations amongst yourselves about the topic. And we're just as if you've been on these calls before, one of the things you know is that the purpose of these is to support, engage, and inspire you. We don't go into a ton of detail. There's not a ton of preparation for this. And so please keep that in mind as you're approaching this session, what our goals are going to be associated with this. Let's find out looks like we've got most people in at this point. Let's find out who's in the audience, and that'll help inform our conversation. So first question that I'm curious about is, what discipline are you in? And oftentimes we see a lot of alpine folks on these calls, but I get very excited when we cover every one of the disciplines. And so hopefully we're going to have all of our different disciplines represented. We've got a lot of alpine folks. We've got some cross-country folks, adaptive, telemark. Any snowboarders out there? We were hoping, one of my co-hosts was hoping to be a snowboarder, also working on the adaptive side. And unfortunately, at the last minute, he had a conflict and was unable to participate. As I mentioned, the vast majority of folks are from alpine, but we do have some representation from the other disciplines. Please encourage your snowboard friends to join these calls because really want to be sure we're being inclusive of all of our disciplines. Another thing that I'm curious about is how long you've been in the organization. We've got a lot of longtime members, but we've got several new members. So to those of you guys who are new members, thank you so much for joining us on this call and joining our community. I have said it, if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. The thing that has kept me in this organization all these years is the community, the people I've had a chance to meet and interact with. And so welcome. I hope you find it as fulfilling as I've found it. We do have one non-member who's joined us, and thank you for joining us as well. And I hope that you'll consider becoming a member after you get to meet all these great people and hear the great things that we're talking about. So, and of course, I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to all our longtime members. Where would we be without all of you who have been so committed to our organization all these years, participating in our events, getting involved with your certification process, going out and inspiring our guests to become lifelong skiers and riders yourself. And then the last question, I'm curious what brought you here to this session? Was there something particular in the description that made you say, hey, I really want to hear what they have to say? So are you looking for some success stories? Maybe you've had an injury yourself and you're trying to figure out, how do I get back to sport? Are you looking for some fitness tips and ideas to be sure you're ready for the season ahead? How important has been community? How important is support from people around you to make sure that you're being successful in getting back into things? Has your perspective of health and wellness changed over the years? And are you curious about how that's impacted folks? Or has there been something that created a turning point in your career? I'll give you an example as we're collecting this information. I've had my share of injuries, like I think many of us have. And, one injury was fine. The next injury really derailed me, really made me very fearful out there. And, but made me very in tune to my body, much more so than I had ever been in my life. And I think that really helped me when I was dealing with my guests in connecting with them and understanding some of the challenges that they were going through, but also figuring out ways to help them. So even though it was an injury, which was bad, it actually was a real highlight over the course of my career. So we pretty much covered the whole gamut. So Susie and Ray, you guys have your work cut out for you. They want to hear the success stories. They want to hear some fitness tips. That's the key one. They want to understand how to be supported by the community around them and how their perspectives of health and wellness have changed and any turning points in your career. So I've mentioned my co-host, but it is a pleasure for me to introduce the two folks who have joined me tonight. Before I get to that, I also want to acknowledge Karen Haringa, who's here with us. Karen is the Director of Member Services and Communications in our Eastern office. She gracefully joins these calls, and she operates behind the scenes to make sure that she's monitoring that chat room and we're answering any questions that you might have. So please feel free to put them in there if we're not on the right track, if we're missing something you want to hear about. And thank you very much, Karen, for being here tonight.
My pleasure.
Perfect. And first up, because I can see Susie's face here, longtime member of our Eastern Ed staff, an amazing athlete, incredible instructor who is very deeply committed to health and wellness and exploring how the mind and the body all work together. Susie, would you please go ahead and introduce yourself to this group?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming to this webinar tonight, or showing up, or whatever it is that we do here, logging in. I'm very excited to share what I'm passionate about. Having, like Kathy said, she had plenty of injuries over the years, and she also found that going through those injuries kind of affected her on a greater scope, where it was like a learning experience, and she learned more about herself, I'm assuming, and limitations and how to get past them. And so, as much as it stinks to be on the sideline, we can often look back and realize that we actually did grow during that time. So that's all I got on that.
Awesome. Thanks. Well, Susie, before I turn it over to Ray, because we want to hear about Ray, who is one of the newer members of our education staff, but he is certainly not new to the ski industry and being a coach and an instructor. But why is this topic important to you? Why did you step up and say, hey, I want to participate in this?
The reason I'm interested, aside from always wanting to participate in the sport I love and in these webinars and conversations, is because we have a lot more power and ability to alter our physical self than many of us believe we can. And healing can be jump-started by weeks, just with some visualization. And I can get later on, I can get a little bit more into how that might work. But I wanted to share that, going to the doctor and getting your surgery or whatever it is you need for whatever malady it is you have is just part of the equation. And that the mental skills that you can apply, the electromagnetics that emit from your hands, that can actually move the iron in your blood and help with circulation. This is all very scientific as far as how we can use ourselves to heal. But it doesn't mean that I wouldn't go to a doctor. Just saying. I've been under the knife a bunch of times, and that's I'm so grateful to have those very skilled surgeons. But a lot of the game and coming back is a lot of it happens up here in the head.
Yeah, so much of it happens up in your head, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It is amazing to me. And so Ray, as I mentioned, Ray is a newer member of our education staff. He's on our Alpine development team and also on a track to become one of our children's specialist staff. And so Ray, would you please introduce yourself to this group? Because I suspect there might be a few people here who know you, but I imagine a lot of them haven't heard about you. And why is this topic important to you? Why did you step up?
Well, the big thing of stepping up is always getting a chance to any chance to talk skiing in the summer. I'm down for it. So let's do this more. But for my background, I've got a background in nursing, and I was an advanced EMT for a number of years. So I've had 3 careers before I became a skier, and the third one was as a military officer. And I suffered a career-ending injury in Afghanistan in 2007. And from 7 to 13, I had to learn how to walk again and learn how to ski again. So I went from a collegiate level ski racer to somebody who could barely put on his boots and put his skis on. And fast forward, and I got level 3 ACE and DEV in 1 year. And in between those, there was 10 surgeries. So fall down, get back up again, fall down, get back up again, cut, heal, come back on snow. To the point where it's almost a cliche. It's, what are you getting cut this summer? Well, I'm going to do this next. And it's putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. So falling off and getting back up. I know a few things because I've seen a few things. So.
Awesome, Ray. Well, thank you again for joining us. And Ray, I'm going to go back to you with this question. And when I think of this next question, what does health and wellness mean to you personally as a snow sports professional? During the brief introduction, I talked a little bit about it from my perspective, right? I think of us putting ourselves out there in the winter environment. We're dealing with the elements. We're dealing with variable conditions. We're dealing with a lot of different people. And so in order for me to be able to maintain my physical well-being, but also my mental well-being in dealing with all of the different things that are going on over the course of the winter, it is really important to me to be preparing myself year-round so that I am in maybe not peak performance, because maybe I can't get to what I believe is peak anymore, but I certainly want to be doing everything I can to be in the best performance that I can be. And so how about for you? What does it mean to you as you think about that snow sports professional?
Right. So health and wellness, from my point of view, is the way that we keep the battery charged. Right. So the physical side of it is that's the obvious one, right? Am I strong enough to make the turn? Am I strong enough to work anywhere from 30 to 100 days on snow with all of these various guests? The physical part, I guarantee everybody in here is like, oh yeah, health and wellness. How well I keep, this bag of flesh going down the hill. But from the nursing point of view, we look at 6 domains of wellness, right? So physical is one of them. That's the easy one. Mental, which, how we take on those challenges, how we take on the injury, how we bounce back from adversity. There's the fiscal piece. Do I have enough in the bank to work through the winter? And then how much do I have to make in the summer? There's the environmental piece of, are you safe on the hill? Are you safe in your workspace? Any one of those domains can drain your battery. And the more we drain that battery, the more likely we are to injure that physical side of it. So think of it as spokes on a wheel. You can mess up one spoke and still limp down the road. You start having 2 or 3 spokes busted on that wellness triangle or that wellness wheel, you're not getting from here to there. So how do we take care of the whole human animal from head to toe and everything in between, especially between that 6-inch box above your shoulders? It's the most dangerous yet the most powerful tool you have.
Awesome. And I'm sure people who are listening to you are as excited as I am to hear what some are the tips that you have that are going to help them to get there. And so, Susie, for you, what does it mean to you personally as a snow sports professional?
Well, as already articulated by you, is you want to be in pretty good shape to get out there. Many, and I was guilty of this as well, kind of ski into shape. As a full-time instructor, that was a little bit easier for me because I was on the snow every single day. But for a weekend warrior to, quote, ski into shape, they're going to have a really hard time to get to a point where they're, really strong, maybe by the end of the season, which is basically what happened to me last year because I had come out of healing from an Achilles surgery and then had some abdominal surgery just 7 weeks prior to examiner training. And I wasn't allowed to do anything at all for 6 weeks. So I was basically just walking and then went to examiner training. So it was a very different kind of experience for me to be afraid and worried that I might, break my other kidney or something like that. But I learned over time that, I got my strength back, but it took until March, basically, for me to really ski and be strong like I was. So this year, and whenever I do gardening and stonework, and whenever I'm doing gardening and stonework, I'm always kind of thinking about, that flexion and extension of the legs while I'm holding heavy weights and how I'm twisting my legs separately from my upper body, and then being a very attentive to not picking up something while I'm twisted, which would wreck my back. And I'm sure Ray would totally understand that. So, yeah, it's whatever it is. You don't have to do the gym. You might be into biking or gardening or climbing mountains, and the strongest muscle and the one we most depend on is that gluteus maximus. So if you're just climbing hills, you're getting in shape for skiing.
Yeah. I know, if you look at like plyometrics as an example, jump training, and you're watching a video of it, and they're jumping, and they might turn their whole body, or they might turn through their waist. And I'm always thinking to myself, nope, in skiing, that's not where I rotate. I want to rotate my legs, the femur in the hip socket. So I'm like you, trying to always relate things back to what I'm going to do in sport. So excellent. It was interesting you made the comment about skiing yourself into shape. And I remember several years ago, I was running a clinic and we were looking at like our pulse and how quickly our pulse would get elevated and then how quickly it would return back to normal. We were looking at the amount of exertion we were doing, and we were at a decent size hill, but what became abundantly clear is that just in everyday skiing, we really do not exert ourselves long enough over an extended period of time to actually allow ourselves to ski into sport. And so if we come into it with that idea, you really need to be very active about putting yourself into challenging situations, challenging activities, getting a lot of mileage, not stopping partway down. All of those little things are going to play into that. Otherwise, the likelihood of you actually getting yourself skied into shape, like you said, Susie, might not happen till March, if at all.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, was there a turning point for you where you started to realize that this physical and mental wellness needed to be a priority, or has it always been a priority? It's just kind of changed over time.
I have to say it was not a priority. I was I was very active anyway during the summer months or off season. I've always been doing the rock work and the gardening, so I've been strong. But the real turning point where I realized that I had to focus came with some age, and especially once I guess I can share my age. I'll be 68 this year, and I feel like I'm in my late 40s, early 50s right now after all I've been doing this summer. And part of it is not remembering how old I am and trying to avoid that all the time. But the turning point was that I had to, I got to a point where I had serious back issues and had to pay attention more and focus more on moving properly and gaining strength for skiing.
Awesome. Now, Ray, you certainly know about back issues, and you've also shared that you had that medical background. And so I'm curious for you, was there a turning point, or has this always been something that you have focused on?
So as an EMT, as a soldier, that physical fitness piece was a required part of the job. So that was always a baseline. But what I found is that as I tried to get to next levels, making the jump from high school racing to collegiate level racing, and I'm racing against guys that were coming off the U.S. ski team at the age of 24, and I'm a true freshman at 19, and seeing what they could do in the gym was oh no, I need to work harder to be stronger and faster and better. So every time I went somewhere new, I got to Ranger School, and I thought I was pretty hot stuff. And there were dudes who were stronger, faster, and meaner than me. And I got the Special Forces selection, and I thought I was pretty hot stuff because I had that Ranger tab. And there were a whole bay of guys that were mechanics that were smarter than me, that they didn't have a college degree, but they were super intelligent. So everywhere I've been, it sort of ups the game. And every time I hit one of those peaks, it feels like I get injured. So the recovery became more and more important. And then as I started skiing more and more again after all those surgeries, I used to ski 100 plus days as a racer, and then I dropped down to 10 years without a single turn when I was early in the military. But I'd jump back on snow every 3 or 4 years, and I could still rip because I was Army strong. Not necessarily skiing smart, but Army strong. There's a big difference. But the big turning point for me really was the summer of 2023. I got out, had some stuff change in my life and my living situation and stuff, and found myself with a lot more time to hike. And all of a sudden, hair across my backside said, I'm going to go get level 3. And I finished off my level 3. And then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try out for dev team and ace team at the same time. And I put those applications in, and everybody's like, you're so crazy for trying it. And the reason I was able to make that jump was that summer I started chasing the 4,000 footers in New Hampshire. And I did 12 of them, like bing, bing, bing. And I was hitting the 52 with a view and the terrifying 25. And I realized I don't need to be lifting weights that my back can't handle and hurt myself. I don't need to be doing plyometrics and functional fitness where I'm jumping and impacting because I was hurting myself. So really what happened for me is I got away from the strength training I'd learned from the ski racing world and the military world, and started doing what was age and stage appropriate for a 45-year-old guy with 10 surgeries underneath his belt. And really the change for me wasn't participating in activity. It was tailoring the activity to the body I was stuck in now, versus that 20-something-year-old kid who could fall off a barn, get up the next day and go ski race and not feel a bump. I had to stretch. I had to drink water, not beer. I had to eat a salad, not a pizza. Like there were some modifications that I had to make. So that was the big swing for me was, I still need to be in better shape than I am, but I can't do it the way that I used to do it.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to you, Ray. And
Yeah.
what I'm curious about is you talked about that amazing year, level 3, dev team, CS, ACE team. But if you think about or you reflect about your best season, the time you felt the best on snow, was it then or would it go all the way back to those collegiate days? And as you're thinking about your answer, I'm just going to share, you said, what I got to do, the body I'm in. And it's also for all of us, it's the time that we have available to this. I think that hiking, hill climbing is so valuable, but I don't have the time to go hike one of the 4,000 footers around me. Anyone who has had a chance to visit me, though, knows I have a hell of a driveway. And so one of the things I do is I go out and I put a radio, I put a book on tape, and I walk up and down my driveway 10 times. And, that is an easy way. I can fit it into my life. I can do it in the dark. I'm in a safe environment, but it gets me that aerobic exercise over a decent amount of time that helps get my body working and ready for the season. So back to you. What was that moment that you felt best on snow and what got you there?
When Sue Kramer came up to me before they announced the ACE team, so we did level 3 dev team, and then the next week I'm at ACE team. And at dev team, Carrie came up to me and she goes, "You sure you want to do this?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" She's like, "Well, you're trying out for ACE next week." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't know if I'll make it." She's like, "You're going to make it. You just made dev team. You're going to make it." I'm okay. So I went out and did the tryout. Wet, heavy snow in the afternoon, icy, choppy stuff in the morning. And at the end of the day, Sue Kramer comes up to me. She goes, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think I do. But as far as I know, I do." And, the way that I was able to touch the snow in that 1 month window, you're only as good as your last turn. So that turn felt really good. That touch felt really good because it wasn't just a physical act of being fast. Am I as fast as I was when I was 21 at the collegiate level? No. Does this body need to go that fast ever again outside of a vehicle? No. So the way that I measured success really changed over time based upon the goals that were in front of me. So in the place I'm at now, the best turns I made was that end of the 24 season. And last year I was struggling mentally. I'm like, I do not feel like I have the same touch I did last year. Oh God, I've got to go do a 3-day dynamic diamonds with Troy Walsh, a national team member. I am going to look like a bag of hammers, right? And next thing you know, we're doing a nonstop short turn run. I get to the bottom, he goes, "Those are the best turns I've ever seen you make." And he skis off and I'm like, okay, that was the best day on snow right there. Where's the next affirmation? So kind of danced around the answer. Like your best day is your last day on snow that you get to ski.
That's okay. That's okay. Good answer. And I think a lot of people that maybe are on this call have struggled. They've gone through different assessments. Maybe they've gone to different tryouts. And quite frankly, as someone who's been on our education staff, there is nothing like the pressure out there of being a group leader, because everybody's watching, and you're just hoping that you're going to be out there and ready to deliver at that moment. And so I'm curious from you, Susie. When have you felt that you were the best on the snow, and what helped you to get there?
I'm still working on that, Kathy. Quite honestly, having lost almost 2 full seasons, and getting back on snow last year, I got like super passionate about learning and improving, and kind of getting out of my box and growing. But, I think, of course, when I was youngest and doing zipper line bumps and catching big airs, and that was all like great. But I think over time, as I've become more aware and perhaps have slowed down a little bit, that I'm more precise. And I like the best day of skiing was my last day, I definitely had a great last day of skiing. And I've been so hungry to get back out there. I'm like signing up for stuff and, looking forward to it.
Awesome. You use the word precise. I also think of the word efficient. And we're going to be doing some senior education things this winter. And one of the things that I've always thought about, particularly if I was working with a senior athlete, which I am now, is how to manage the terrain efficiently. And a big part of that has been what I've learned as an instructor about how we move on our equipment and how we make our tools work for us versus us fighting them or working against them. And that has been a key piece for me that I think, to Ray's point, has allowed me to still feel like I have a touch out there, is because I've got that sense of how to be efficient and how to be balanced and that dynamic balance, right? How to constantly be using all of the skills and adapting and blending all of those so that I can stay in that balance as I'm moving down the hill. So you agree with that?
I have my hand up on that.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I just lost it. It was about the efficiency. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I can jump in on that one.
Sure, go ahead, Ray.
So early in the decision to make a chase at the skiing thing, I went out and did a day with Mac Jackson. And Mac was like, "Hey, that was a great 10 bumps." I'm like, "Yeah, thank you." He goes, "Yeah, now do it for 100. And I looked at him, I was like, "No, no, that's not going to happen." He's like, "Exactly. If you can't ski that way for 100 turns, then why are you trying to do it for 10? And Mac, as a 10th Mountain Division descendant, was aware of where I'd come from in the background and the military and the injury pieces. And it was kind of earth-shattering for me that efficiency is more important than any power. I was the fastest when I was probably 21. I was the strongest when I was probably 28. I am the most efficient and accurate that I've ever been in my skiing now. So that accuracy as well as precision of movement, right? Accuracy is, can we hit the target in the turn where we want to? Precision being, can I replicate that again and again and again? And dialing in those two knobs, I'd rather have precision over accuracy. We can dial in accuracy later. So, and be efficient doing it. It helps with that accuracy to repeat and precision to repeat again and again and again.
Awesome. Thanks. Did it come back to you?
You're using a lot less muscular activity when you're precise because of the flow of your movements. And so, yeah, that's why, we continue to grow. And I'm sure all of us on this call feels like there's still more, that we can do to either sustain our performance or enhance it.
I know, Susie, that idea of flow is something that you talk about a lot, right? And I'm probably not using it in the right context in terms of the way that you think about it. But I can't come up with the word, but that gliss, that flow, that connection with the environment, the connection with my body, is one of the things that I love so much about our sport. That feeling that comes as I'm moving. And I don't know if you want to. I'm butchering your thoughts, and so do you want to help me out here, Susie?
Uh-oh. Did she freeze?
Did we lose you, Susie? Looks like she might have frozen for a second.
That's all right. So the way, like Einstein's thing, if you can't explain it simply, you don't know it well enough. Flow for me is effortless effort. You get into that spot where you're doing something, whether it's fly casting, whether it's making turns down a perfect slope, where you are exerting effort, but you don't feel it. It just, everything melts away and you're in the moment, connecting turn to turn, pulling cast to cast, whatever activity you can find that mental state in, because it's real. Flow is really a mental state. It's that point where effortless effort, and you're able just to be in that moment, and nothing else is there.
I'm curious, right? While we're waiting for Susie to come back online here, you talked about how important hiking was to you to get ready, but do you have one like simple but powerful fitness tip that makes a difference for you on the hill?
If you rest, you rust. So if you don't have the 4,000 footers, or you don't have the time, or you don't have the buddies to go out hiking with, go for a walk. Whether it's in your driveway or if it's, I'm splitting time between the mountains in the winter and the beach in the summer. And this summer, I have had a heck of a time trying to find anywhere to walk up a hill on the seacoast of New Hampshire. It's all 16 miles long, and it's as flat as a pancake. So if I just sat around being like, oh, I don't have a mountain to hike, I can't do anything, I would be back to 255 and, couldn't put my jacket on. So if you rest, you rust. It doesn't matter if Susie's lifting heavy stones and putting them down, or if Quinn Ferguson from the ACE team is a personal trainer and they're doing some like these amazing moves. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Like, that's going to hurt me. You don't have to do somebody else's workout, but don't rust. Don't get complacent. Don't get lazy. Like, if you rest, you rust. That's when it comes to the one thing for fitness, physically wise. Don't become sedentary, or don't just be seated in the couch in the off season.
Yeah, I also think of it as, the motion is the lotion. That is the thing that keeps the parts moving. For me, a big fitness tip that is a go-to for me is I work on balancing all the time. And so if you've been on this call before, you've heard me say this before. So standing at the the bathroom sink and brushing my teeth, I will do that on one foot. But it's not sufficient to just stand there balancing on one foot. You need to balance on one foot while you're flexing and extending. And as you're watching your face in that mirror, is your face going like this, and your face going like that, and your face is going like this? Or are you able to stay over your center and flexing up and down? And so, if one of the things you're trying to accomplish in your skiing is the ability to ski on one foot, if you can't stand in your bathroom in your shoes or your bare feet and flex and extend in balance there, the odds of you being able to do that when you get out on the slope are slim to none. And so to me, that's a really powerful thing that I can do every day that keeps those neuro connections, everything firing so that I'm ready for the season ahead.
Yeah, proprioception. I'm sure that Horst Abrams will argue with us if we say that, balance is a skill that can be trained and worked on outside versus dynamic balance being the outcome. But somebody threw in the comments real quick of a Bosu ball. If you were to come to my house, you would think that I lived at a circus, because there's slack lines out front, and there's a trampoline, and then there's the Bosu ball in the kitchen, and there's bongo boards in the living room, and a skier's edge in the garage. And every day, whether I'm just catching up with the kids, step up on the bongo board and like, all right, jump on your board, and we'll sit there and talk and just toss a ball back and forth, balancing on that bongo board. So any chance you can get, just don't stop.
Yeah. I see someone else made the comment about stretching and how important that is. And, I think, Ray, you mentioned stretching all the time. That is definitely something for me as I've gotten older. As with taking on this job as the CEO, I spend a lot more time at my desk, a lot more time in a car than I ever used to. And so those hip flexors, which are so important to our ability to turn our legs and move down the hill, those have all become extremely tight. And so being able to stretch those is an important part of my fitness. And just heard the bell ring. I'm hoping that means Susie's coming back on to join us. So
the stretching and the fitness pieces, they're there. One of the things that I have at my disposal, which most of us don't have, is one of the SkyTech simulators. So I coach at Stand and Dance for them in the summer, and we'll work through boots and stuff. But even on a $250,000 fitness machine designed for skiing, there's no rotary in there. Mm-hmm. your legs are fit. You can shuffle a little bit, about 2 to 3 inches, but there is no rotary movement. In the background, I've got my surfboard, because in the summer, the reason I'm down on the coast is I can get up and surf. And let me tell you, if you mess up your center of mass over base support, you're going to slap down on your butt pretty hard. If you're looking down at your feet, like we see our beginners do on skis, you're going to go over the nose pretty quick. So trying to find activities that approximate what we do, really hard. It's really hard.
Karen, I'm looking at you. Have we heard from Susie? Do we?
I'm here. My internet died, and so I'm on my phone now.
Well, and now it looks like you're sitting outside in a beautiful sunset. So.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
I have no idea what it's doing on my phone. Yeah, sorry about that, folks. The weather today's been making it a little weird here at my house.
That's okay. I will share, if anyone's ever had a chance to see pictures, the amazing garden and maze and patio that Susie's created. It's absolutely extraordinary. So beautiful work. We were just talking while you were disconnected about if you had one simple but powerful fitness tip that made a big difference for you. And I shared that I practice balancing on one foot and flexing and extending. And we talked about stretching. And I didn't know if you had one that you wanted to share with the group.
Well, I guess the thing that I've been working on is range of motion, because I feel like the years of limping really hindered my range of motion. So I've recently done some patio work with some very big rocks and some stone walls, and lifting these things to get them into the wheelbarrow to bring them to where I've got to place them is it's a lot of heavy lifting. But every time I'm trying to flex down as low as I can to the ground and kind of set my arms steady and just use my legs to lift. And I feel like I'm getting much stronger as far as my flexion, my ability to be strong and flexed, because I didn't do enough of that while I was in my boo-boo stage.
So one of the things I would love to do now that we've got Susie back is we're going to go into some breakout rooms, because we talked about how important community is in keeping us in this and our health and wellness. And so what we're going to do is we're going to just randomly break you up into 2 different groups so that you can unmute yourselves and have a conversation and maybe get inspired by the community around you to either find some support or reach out to folks here. Before we do that, I saw in the chat window someone asked or mentioned that they had pneumonia and lost their balance and are asking for ways to get back to it. I'm gonna turn first to you, Ray. In my experience, with balance, it is just practicing it. It is just trying to take more and more time balancing and upping the challenge. Can you do it very simply? Do you need a little bit of support from a table or a counter? And then can you hold that longer? Then can you start adding and flexing? I would also encourage you to make sure you talk to a doctor if you're really struggling with it, to make sure that you don't have like an inner ear issue or some other health thing that's causing trouble. But Ray, do you got any other suggestions for them?
Yeah, the last one you hit was the first one I was going to go with. Number one, double check with your doctor. So balance is, and this is in our workbooks and textbooks too, but balance is a combination of a bunch of things. We'll start from the top down, but you've got your inner ear, and there's a little fluid in there. And over time with age, that fluid can either come up with little kids and we see ear infections and burst ruptured eardrums. With adults, that fluid level can sometimes dry up and all of a sudden we get vertigo when we never got vertigo before. So I would definitely go to talk to a doctor. Moving our way down, we have all the joints that move to put our counterbalances in there, but then we have proprioception in all of our joints. So the balanced practice that we've been talking about will help recalibrate your body to a certain point. But if there's a physical hindrance, whether it's in the inner ear, which if you had really bad pneumonia and they had you on a whole bunch of stuff to dry you out, the nurse in me is leaning towards inner ear, and go talk to your doctor and have your ears checked first. And make sure you're not battling a physical barrier, right? Somebody else in there had a question about mental barriers. We can talk about that one too later, but the physical barriers, make sure that you're healthy. Make sure that you're not looking at something else going on in that inner ear. Between these, you've got a really important organ in there you don't want to have messing around with. So I would check with the doctor, start with practice stuff. Interesting that it came on after pneumonia. So I'd love to talk to that person. Like, all right, what meds did they have you on? How long ago was this? Was this 20 years ago, or was this just over the last 2 weeks? There's a lot to it. So, and I know Susie's got some background in the healing arts too. So,
well, you're right on. It makes sense that would have exacerbated an inner ear type of imbalance. The crystals in the ear affect your balance. Is that right?
It could be an electrolyte. So there's an interstitial fluid in there that's just a third space fluid that your body produces and then reabsorbs on a regular basis. And if you've thrown off your electrolyte balance, you can have all kinds of stuff from cardiac to inner ear to interocular pressure. I mean, your eyes could be changing with depth perception. There's all kinds of balance is a whole body activity.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. So let me do this. Let me break you out into these groups. There are some other questions in the chat box that I want to be sure that we cover before we wrap up today. But I'm gonna send you into the chat room till 8 o'clock. So that's 9 minutes. So that should give you plenty of time to chat amongst yourselves. And so I will see you back in about 9 minutes, but this is your opportunity, everyone, to specifically ask your questions or to spark a conversation. So enjoy. This is your time. So, Susie, I'm going to go to you first, and I'm just curious, how was your conversation with your group? And were there any questions or topics that came up that would be great to share with this larger audience?
Perhaps, because we introduced ourselves, basically found out who was from where, and then the question of getting back to the flow state came up because I had been cut off, and I was suggesting that the fear was the biggest hurdle. And the fear and being cautious, by the time I would think of the action, it should have happened already. And so I found myself behind my equipment the whole time where, I was the skis taking me for a ride rather than me taking the skis for a ride. That's kind of, a little exaggerated, but it kind of felt like that. So I also shared with the group that I did ask my doctor because, there are definitely instances where people need to be cautious. And I would suggest for an optimal sensation, if you are in the category where you have to be super careful, just ski in an environment that's a little lower end, so you can still experience the joy and exhilaration of skiing in flow.
Yeah, that fear piece is so important. I mentioned earlier some injuries I had, and it was so frustrating to me because I knew exactly what I wanted to do, but my body would shut down. And I'm like, no, that's not what you want to do. But it was that fear piece. And for me, it was, a break. I had two back-to-back winters with injuries, severe injuries in January. And so that third winter, when I got through January successfully without an injury, it was like a magic switch went off. And I was like, oh, I'm better now. So I wish for all of you that you could turn off your fear switch as easily as I did. But I can totally relate to how incredibly frustrating that is. And part of, like you mentioned, it was Mike Porter years ago that told me, if you're thinking about something, you're too late. If you're thinking about moving something, it's too late. And that really resonated with me because I was thinking about every single movement I wanted to make. And I tried to be much more proactive about my thinking because I can't stop thinking. But I started to think, well, I want to do this now so that happens in the future. And so that proactive thinking was another way that really helped me. So thank you for sharing that. And Ray, same question to you. What came out of your group session? Is there anything useful to share with the larger group here?
Ray, you're on mute.
Yeah, I was. When we all came back, I was just talking to myself, having a grand old time.
Nice.
So one of the things that came up, and I'll repeat it here, everybody on screen, how many of you stretch every time before you ski by raise of hands? How many of you actually stretch every time? And I'm going to say half of us are lying because I don't even stretch every day. So that was one of the things.
It's like this.
Yeah, it's sort of like that. Stretch. Okay,
That's my stretch.
My helmet. Like that's a stretch. So that was one of the things we came up with, and then we drifted into Pilates and yoga, and the need for regimenting some of that stuff into your daily wellness practices, whether it's a 1 minute plank here and there, or however it is, getting ready for special forces selection. I put a pull-up bar over the bathroom, and every time I had to go to the bathroom, I had to do 5 on the way in and the way out. And there were some days at the way in, those 5 were really fast. But just finding a way to get a pull-up bar so I was ready for the climbing challenge. Finding ways to integrate these activities into your daily living, whether it's brushing your teeth on the non-dominant foot with a non-dominant hand. Add that one in, Kathy, not just one foot, but use the wrong hand. And that coordination that you thought you had when you're doing it with the proper hand, it goes out the window because we're cross-coordinated. We're not there. And then we had a few real quick questions of, injuries that have occurred over time. And the big thing that we hit on was injuries never go away. They go into hibernation, and then they jump back up and bite you in the buttocks when you least expect it. So if you're not tending to them, intentionally, they're going to come back to bite you later. So those were some of the bigger points. And then Thessaly brought up the use of rollerblades as a training aid, and I threw out the surfboard as a training aid. And whether it's cycling or any of those, what other activities do people do in the off season that's going to keep them in the right shape to avoid the injury, so we're not having to do the recovery?
No, and the other thing to keep in mind is I had a knee injury many years ago, thought it was all healed, but then as I got into this desk job, started to find that knee was hurting more and more. So I went and saw a physical therapist, and I explained to her my lifestyle. And so she was able to give me some things to do while I'm driving. And so those hours in the car are not just wasted hours. The time I'm spending at the desk. And so someone asked, surgery recovery at different age groups. I think it goes without saying that as we get older, getting back to good health just takes longer. It takes more effort. But how do you fit that into a full-time job and all of your other commitments? Well, like you said, Ray, set those little milestones for yourself. Set yourself up. So I can't turn the television on until I did 5 push-ups. Right? I can't walk into the bathroom until I've done 3 pull-ups. I can't drive X amount of time in my car without, I spend X amount of time holding a cup between my knees because that helps fire some of those muscles versus just simply sitting there in the car. And so looking for ways to integrate those things, and maybe you don't need to make it a rule. I need to make it a rule. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. So, somebody asked about hip flexor exercises. I'm certainly not an expert there. I know the ones that I do. I don't know if either Susie or Ray, if you've got any particular ones that you would recommend, or.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of ab and adduction stuff, like like you said, with the cup between your knees, doing some isometrics to strengthen your quads and thighs. But the doctor or the Mr. Nurse here can be a little bit more specific.
Yeah.
And the cup between my knees one, she's like, you don't even have to do anything specific. Just the fact that you're holding that cup between your knees for half an hour is going to be doing stuff for you. And
Sure.
so, yeah. Ray, thoughts?
Hip flexor, have everybody sit up in your chair nice and tall. Put your hands down. All right. Put your hands right here on your hip. Yeah, and then just march one leg and then the next. March one leg and hold, and then put it back down. Can you feel those muscles firing across the femur and up into the hip? So if you're stuck at a desk, is that something you can simply do? Do 10 of them on each side and let me know if it doesn't burn at least a little bit this deep into the summer.
And if you're on a highway and speed control, you can do that in your car too.
Just start marching, and when you start wheeling the car all over the place, you can tell them that Ray told you to do it in a webinar. There's all kinds of little stuff you can do. The bigger one for me more is the stretching of that almost like a lunge where you put one leg back, one leg, I don't know, it's gonna hold, nope. So one leg forward, one leg back, and just slowly move in forward. You'll get the stretch here. When you come back to neutral, you're gonna get the glute on the back side of it. The big thing to remember is if you're targeting one muscle, always balance. So if you're doing something on the front, do something on the back. If you're doing something on the chest, do something on the back. If you're doing bicep, do tricep. So you don't come out of balance.
That lunge.
Go ahead, Susie.
I was going to say the lunge that you were doing stretches out the iliopsoas muscle, and being skiers, we're like always flexed. And that pulls on the lower back a lot. And so even through the season, we should be doing stretches like that to balance it out, because you've got, you're constantly flexed at the hip. And that shortening of the iliopsoas does cause a lot of back pain. So that was a good stretch.
Sorry.
Nope, I was just going to say, I encourage you, before you start any exercise program, we are not your doctor. We are not your experts. Get professional advice. I mentioned my knee injury, my knee pain. And my physical therapist said the problem was not my knees, it was my tight hip flexors. So my knees were having to do things that they didn't need to do. So you want to be sure you're actually addressing the real problems, not what the symptom might be. So get professional advice. But then there's all kinds of resources out there online to try stuff.
Bingo.
What I'd like to do is what do they call that? The high speed round. That's not the name. Lightning round. And I'm encouraging the people that are listening, if you have questions, we're going to be wrapping up pretty soon. This is your last chance to put those questions into the chat room. But as people are thinking about what they still want to know is, Ray and Susie, Ray first, what's a healthy snack for you that you keep in the pocket out on the hill?
I keep the little Cliff Bar minis because they don't melt in the winter and it's a safe place to go. So on the chairlift, I will eat probably a half dozen to a dozen of those throughout the day when I'm riding up the hill.
Awesome. Susie, how about your healthy snack?
I have gum in my pockets. on the hill. I try to eat protein, definitely a protein breakfast, because a carb breakfast by 10 a.m., I'll be coaching and fall apart. You just kind of lose a lot of energy. So definitely lots of protein. And I've recently discovered that the older we get, the more protein we need for our to build the muscles in our body. So that's about it. You know, I'm not the healthiest candidate in the bunch. I told him earlier, you know, I get gummy bears in my pocket so I can stick them to kids' goggles and motivate them.
Well, I'm so excited that I read somewhere that chocolate has health benefits, so I could get away with saying a pocket full of Hershey Kisses is my healthy snack. So excellent. All right, back
Somebody
to you.
said hydration, super,
Yeah.
super, super important.
Yeah, absolutely. And back to you, Susie. What's weird but works, a wellness habit that you swear by?
What might be weird? It was more weird 20 years ago than it is now, and it's my soapbox that I stand on about awareness and being able to feel subtle changes in your body while you're just standing there, or realizing what kind of habits you might have. Just sitting in your car, whether it's on one cheek or two cheeks, you know, you might be shortening up a group of muscles and elongating another group. So what Ray said about balancing muscle groups from front to back and side to side is really, really important. But the weird things, I guess, that I've done, I've been able to regenerate my vertebrae through visualization, and that was proven through an MRI. So my weird thing is to understand the pathology, look at pictures, visualize healthy tissue, healthy processes, and then fall asleep, because the subconscious mind continues. It continues on anyway while you're doing it. Sorry.
That's okay. Nope, did we just lose her again?
We lost her again.
All right. So, Ray, how about weird but works wellness habit for you?
Again, big hairy army guy doing meditation. That does not fit the script for who I am. But through a lot of the wellness practices, through the veterans organizations I work with, a full body scan. And I'm not talking like go in the tube, a full body scan, but there's different apps out there that can talk you through different ways of doing it. And sort of piggybacks on where Susie was coming from with that sleep hygiene. I do it at night to downshift. And if I've got an exam the next day and I'm up until 4 a.m, fretting about, oh my gosh, am I gonna mess up every assessment that I'm supposed to be capturing during this thing? If I'm in my own head, I'm not going to be well rested the next day. If I'm tired and not well rested, it puts me more prone for injury. So that full body scan and getting into that meditation to help downshift. If you can't tell, I'm a little ADHD, so trying to downshift before sleep actually does huge dividends for me on the hill.
Yeah, the resting piece is so important. The other thing, you know, I'm not sure how weird this is, but breathing, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes when we get anxious, we get nervous, we get in our head because we're focused on other things, we stop breathing, or we start to breathe very shallowly. So we're not actually bringing the oxygen into our body. We're not actually bringing that oxygen into our brain. Our brain starts to move into that fight or flight mode, and it's not processing what we're trying to deal with that's in front of us. So be sure that when you're out there on the hill, you're taking those deep breaths. Take a moment on the chairlift to be sure you're breathing in and filling your lungs, and you'll be amazed how much that's going to help relieve some of the stress and anxiety that you have out there.
And so on that breathing, just put your hands on your chest and your belly right now and just breathe. Are you breathing from your chest, or are you abdominal breathing? One's a rest and digest state. The other one's more of a fight or flight state. If you're breathing from up here, that's more fight or flight. You're vibrating at a high frequency. It's so somebody had asked what the body scan means on that piece, and it goes into the breathing. It goes into all those pieces, and there are guided meditations you can listen to. So I'll pop in a guided meditation, and it says, "Hey, tighten your toes," and you tighten your toes, and it's like, all right, that feels good. All right, rotate your ankles. Okay, I'm rotating my ankles. Cool. Tighten your quads, and all of a sudden I'm like, ooh. Oh, that's hurting. Okay, that hurts in the knee. That I'm going to watch out for that tomorrow. So it's just sort of a guided meditation with a narration that sort of guides you through it. And there's all different forms of them out there. So you can do it with the breathing, you can do it with the full body, but that mindfulness piece. Sorry, Kathy, I didn't mean to jump on that.
No, I think, and I can't remember what episode it was last year, but we had Pam Green on, and she took us through an activity where we did some box breathing. And I think Karen Haringa can pipe up and talk about how that box breathing was a game changer for her in terms of being able to get a good night's sleep at night. And
Yes.
So definitely, if you look back at the recordings of these episodes from last year, look for the one with Pam Green. Check that out. She takes you through that, and I think there's some useful stuff there. So I think, someone asked about advice on dealing with fear from collisions. Fear from anything, right? Fear from collisions is definitely something that we've got that's going on our hills. It's something that we as an Eastern Region, your Eastern Region Board of Directors is actively talking to our member schools to try to figure out, what can we do to keep our instructors, keep our guests safe out there. One injury is too many. And so really want to try to make a safer environment for all of us. I don't know if Ray or Susie, you have any specific advice on that, either on dealing with that fear?
Well, I think I did have a wicked fear once when I was pregnant, and I was understudying. I was ETS and understudying a level 3 exam, and had to ski bumps. And for the first time in my life, I was actually frozen in fear, where I couldn't move. And I never understood it when people would say, I can't move. And I'd be like, of course he can move. But then it happened to me. And the way I got through it was to just gradually know what you have confidence in. So I knew that I could stand there, because I was, and I could side slip down a bump and be safe. I was like 7.5 months pregnant at the time. And then gradually I went from a side slip to a pivot slip, and then got into the skiing again. But that it's that first move, it's getting through that first paralyzing experience and having a bit of success. So just start gradually and build into it.
Yeah.
I also, I've had,
question, if I may say something.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
I had raised the question. I had one concussion and one ACL tear, which resulted in surgery and a year lost, basically, because I was hit from behind. And I've been back on skis, all is well, but this fear is at the back of my mind all the time, and I feel it's like a break, actually, on my progress. I'm trying to see if anybody has, lived something.
You have to ski faster than everybody else. That's how you don't get hit.
Yeah.
Down the steepest thing possible. May I jump in on that?
Certainly.
Remember that.
All right. So Marie, real quick question. Have you, when your fear hits, are you a freeze, fight, fawn, posture? What's your instinct? Do you shut down? Is it?
I think, I'm trying to think. I think it slows me down. So, if anything, I wouldn't say that I shut down, but,
Okay.
When I think of other skiers coming back in behind me too fast, or I hear them, I sort of go,
Yeah. And sort of
a type of
dive away from. Okay.
yes.
So the number one thing on fear is okay. Where's Murmur when you need her, right? Didn't she write the full book on fear?
I
Fear
did.
is okay.
I read the book and I skied with her once. So
Okay. I get to ski with her at Selection. She's hot stuff, man. She's so smart.
Yeah, she is.
So fear is okay. Hi, I'm an Army Ranger. I used to jump out of planes for a living.
right.
You get a little fearful when you look down from 500 feet going 120 miles an hour. Yep, you still get out the door because it's part of the job. So you're still out on the hill, right? So this fear hasn't chased you away.
No.
So give yourself some grace on that. Being scared of being injured because it's happened. This isn't an irrational fear.
Right.
You know, you're not living in New Hampshire being like, I'm scared of pythons. I'm not going out in the grass ever again. We don't have pythons. That's not a fear that we really need to worry about. So you've been hit, you've been injured, you've lost time, you've had to go through the recovery. That's justifiable fear. So start from that point. It's okay to be scared. Being scared keeps us alive, right? The 21-year-olds who are doing all the crazy, stupid stuff and jumping over cliffs and double cork back, whatever's, it's like they don't have enough fear in their life. So how do we dial your fear down? Part of it's time, part of it's space, physical and temporal space, right? So time away from the injury and more time on snow where you're like, okay, this isn't going to happen every time.
Right.
But it's okay to have fear. Like that's
Yeah.
the biggest thing is don't beat yourself up because of fear.
Right.
Okay, don't let it lock you in.
No.
You're still skiing.
Yep.
Okay. What do you find makes it easier for you?
What makes it easier? Actually, probably getting on more difficult slopes because you have less crazy people going straight down.
Yeah, there's less beginners in those areas, and if they are beginners, they're usually doing the walk for life or the slide for life.
Yep. So,
Right.
Sorry. So actually, probably challenging myself a little more on more difficult slope.
Okay. So for somebody earlier asked, hey, how do I find the flow state on steep stuff? You don't. You find the flow state in the stuff where you're comfortable.
Right.
And eventually the comfort level gets bigger. So for yours, instead of starting on something shallow where it's inundated with beginners,
Right.
go to the steep place and rebuild your confidence there.
Yes. I
But
think
don't beat yourself up for fear, please.
No.
Yeah, and if I may, Ray,
Your comments?
if I may, I would agree with that as well. And also, I think one thing to just be cautious of is not taking yourself out earlier and earlier each time, right? But rather trying to gradually allow yourself to be more comfortable. Like I've seen people in the past where they have fear and then they get in a situation where they're worried about getting hit and they keep taking themselves out of the game earlier and earlier and earlier to where they'll only ski on Wednesdays from 8 to 9, right? Because they're just too scared rather than expanding, saying, okay, like this is actually okay and I'm fine, and expanding their comfort zone. So I would say to try to expand, which is, I think, what you were saying too, right?
Right. And what Jennifer is talking about is it falls into the confines of prolonged exposure therapy, right? That's something that I went through for my combat related PTSD. Find the thing that scared the boogers out of me, right? Like, nope, trash in the road. I still swerve around it if I'm not paying attention. So getting in there with a therapist. And again, if mental health is part of your wellness and your physical health, fear is an emotion, right? We start talking about the CAP model and that affective piece, right?
Yeah.
We're pulling from the book. Just because we're not under the age of 18 doesn't mean CAP doesn't apply. It applies to all of us. We're in a different age and stage now, right? So, hey, I'm like, if I'm still skiing at 65, I'll be psyched. I didn't think I was going to live past 30, and I treated my body that way. So my career might be cut short, but there's nothing wrong with talking to a therapist and getting individual therapy for something like this, if it's at that point. The prolonged exposure therapy is what Jennifer's hitting on, where get out and don't. I get to the point where I didn't coach on MLK weekend because of my PTSD. Did that help or hurt my progress?
Right.
I
I coach
In all
on sorry.
circumstances. I try to.
All right, Kathy, reel it in.
Have
Maria,
you?
I will add in there as well is use your community. get yourself out there with a couple of wingmen, when men, women, right, that are behind you, that have kind of got your back, so that you can ski, you can perform, you can do it, you can be aware of your surroundings. And to I think that might help you as you continue to get back to sport. And but Ray, that was excellent advice. I see Chris, you've got
thank you
your
for all
hand up
your
for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you said that, Kathy, because I know what helped me personally coming back from a couple injuries was kind of what Murmur would say, kind of choosing an appropriate guide, kind of when the guide isn't in yourself and you don't have the confidence and you have a lot of fear. The first time, see Jennifer nodding her head too, when you're coming back from an injury, one time I think I went out, it was a snowboarder, but it was a physical therapist that offered to ride with me my first day back on snow. And that really boosted my confidence because she had also seen me in the pool and in the weight room and doing my rehab. So she knew what my fears were, and I was able to ride the chairlift with her. And then other times, other pros, whether it's a peer or a supervisor or someone that's more of a specialist like a Ray or Susie or Kathy or someone who's ed staff, just someone that knows what you've been through. Don't be afraid to share. And they kind of help you say, hey, I know you just had a surgery or something. What are you feeling right now? You feel like you're good to go here, or what are you thinking? Or when you pull off the hill, like, how do you get back in the game?
Yeah, give yourself some grace. I say that to all of us. We're so hard on ourselves. And we see those folks that are far less skilled than us, but they're there slapping each other on the back saying, oh, we were amazing out there. And we're sitting there going, well, there was that one turn I liked. And so give yourself some grace. Enjoy what you're doing. Be proud of what you're doing out there. I will put a plug in for our October 15th episode. It's going to be on committing to success, highlighting the keys to successfully preparing for assessments, tryouts, or other leadership opportunities. And Murmur Blakesley and Allie Cummings are going to be my co-hosts for that. So I'm sure as we commit to success and we prepare ourselves, dealing with some of our fear and anxiety as part of that is going to be part of that conversation. So if you were interested in that, it's October 15th. October 15th, not next month. Next month is on advanced instruction techniques, offering insights into advanced teaching methods to help instructors improve their skills. So that will be September 17th. And so I want to thank again. Go ahead.
I just want to add, as far as the fear thing goes, there's a modality called emotional freedom technique, and it uses tapping along your energy meridians while you're processing what it is you're afraid of. So a lot of people have found great efficacy with EFT.
Emotional freedom technique, you said?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's done with tapping. You can actually look it up online, and there are small tutorials that you could start doing for yourself.
Right.
But I've seen it work very well for some people.
Well, thank you for the advice. Appreciate it.
As Karen just posted online, we do these free webinars as a way to engage, inspire, and support you. And it's intended to be kind of that high-level conversation. Our goal is not really to get into the weeds with these topics. You will get a survey form after this. If you're getting value out of this series, if this is something that's bringing some joy and inspiration to your life, I encourage you to take some time to complete that so that I know that we should keep doing these. And also, if is something else that you want, please let us know in the comments on ways that we can continue to improve. I want to thank Karen Haringa for manning the chat room for us and making sure everything is running smoothly. I also I have to thank my co-hosts who were amazing, Susie Chase Motzkin and Ray Gilmore. Thank you so much to you guys for being so open about your experiences and sharing what you've been through to hopefully help other people who are listening If you know anyone who would get value out of this, we do record them and we post them on our website. You can check out our past episodes. And also, if someone else needs to check this out, they can queue it up. It'll probably be there in a week or so. So
I apologize for my glitches here on this end.
no apology necessary, Susie. We're so glad that you were able to join us. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. Nice share.
Thank you.
Any closing words, Susie, while we're talking to you?
Just get out there and if you're coming back from an injury, you do have to give yourself grace and time and just keep at it. You'll be uncomfortable for a while, and then one day you'll say, "Oh my God, look at me, I'm running," like I did. So just be patient with yourselves and keep at it.
Awesome. And Ray, any closing thoughts for this group?
Don't try and ski yourself into shape. Start now. Like this should be a pretty good prodding to say, hey, maybe I should be doing some yoga. Maybe I should be getting out and, trying new things and be adventurous in the off season, right? You don't have to be in the gym to get into shape, whether it's lifting rocks and planting a garden, or if it's walking up and down your driveway or roller derby, whichever thing wants to work for you. Have at it. Don't rest. You'll rust.
True.
On that note, I'm going to sign off. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.